Okay, now we are at the back of the dress and we're just repeating the same steps that we did to the front of the dress. So first I'm going to match up my lines. So I'm going to match up that back shoulder line and that hip line. And again, it's the same thing. We have that 1 inch fold over. We've marked it center back, CB, so that we don't get it confused with the center front, because at this point, when they're both flat out, it's easy to get those two mixed up. We do our initial pinning. Okay. I'm going to cross this over this way and just sort of like pin it right there for the time being. For this particular, for the back, we're actually going to create a shoulder dart. So I'm first going to go in. The shoulder darts are always going to be on the princess seam right at the top. So I'm going to go in and pinch that there and just temporarily, after I flatten everything out, pin it right at the top. I'm just going to hold that in place there because I still have a couple of things I need to figure out. I'm going to sort of feel around to get that other neck point and push that in there. And remember, we said we have to flatten this out. So we do our initial marking, feeling for the groove of that neckline. Make sure it corresponds with that point that we have there. Going to cut off some of that excess. Take our scissors down and slash. Now that's nice and flattened, and we can continue to do our work. I can go in now and pick up that shoulder dart before we secure it, nice and flat. Okay. Now for the side seam, when you're doing the seams here up top, you always fold it over. So we fold it over the center front. So we'll go something like this, fold it over, feel around once again for that point, make your X, and then just feel for that shoulder line and mark your X. And then if you want, you can just put a pin right in there to stabilize it as you continue to work. Just put a pin in there and reinforce that shoulder. Okay. Now you're going to see there is some excess fabric here, and what do we have to do when there's excess fabric? We have to make darts, right? Because darts give our garment shape and form. So for the back darts, there's usually, it requires usually two. One directly on the princess seam, and then one about an inch away from the princess seam. Draping has a lot to do with like feeling around and molding the fabric with the dress form. That's the best thing about using the dress form, because it already has some of the markings there, so you just sort of like run your hands along it to feel those seams. So I'm feeling around for that side seam. Focusing more on finalizing my darts, right? So maybe one more pin, flatten that out a little bit. Now I can start sort of messing around and finalizing the darts. Now once you take this off the dress form, there's obviously going to be some areas where you're going to have to refine, and that's where your pattern making, what you learn for pattern making, that's where that comes into play, because it's going to allow you to sort of streamline your designs. That's why having the skill to pattern make in addition to draping, having those things together, they work, you know, in assistance of each other. That's actually a really long dart. So there's still a lot to play with. You don't want your darts to be quite that long. So there's still a lot to play with there, but I just wanted you guys to see the way that the garment sort of begins to take shape. And what I would just go in there and do is cut off some of this excess here as well on the shoulder. I would also go and do the same thing I did to the front and just run my pencil along there. And again, here is obviously enough fabric, so I would just do that X that I was talking about before. And I would go in about a ½ inch away. Again, I'm eyeballing it, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you want to wait until you take it off the dress form and mark exactly what you feel the exact marker should be. I definitely suggest doing that. I feel comfortable eyeballing it, so that's why I'm eyeballing it. And there you go. So this is just a basic shift dress. But really here is a key indicator that you're going in the right direction as far as what your final drape would look like. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Videos are uploaded weekly covering dressmaking, fashion, lectures, and more.